Honeymoon hotspot workers, what are your best and worst stories regarding newlyweds? I don't work at a honeymoon hotspot, but over winter break I went on a cruise. My cousins and I had met this couple on the cruise that were on their honeymoon. The husband was pretty chill, and the wife seemed really nice too. I think they were in their 20s. He was like 27, and she 24. I was drunk the whole cruise, so I may be wrong. Well, anyway, we had hung out with them just about every night, partying and drinking at the bar. Well, on the last night my oldest cousin went to bed early, and it was just I and my other cousin. It was around 2 in the morning and we were just chill in bed all drunk enjoying food, when all of a sudden she comes stumbling into the restaurant and sat with us. She told us her husband went to bed, and she was lonely. We openly invited her to join us, and that's when she completely opened up. She was saying how frisky she was, and how she had been keeping her eye on us. We thought she was joking, but then she turned and said that if she wasn't recently married she would have loved to frick my cousin and I. We didn't know what to do, so we just walked her to her room and said goodnight to her. But I really have felt bad for her husband. She tried to apologize to us the next day, but my cousin got mad and told her she better get her act together. My cousin is 23 and I'm 20 BTW. I used to work events at a high-end place that did conferences and wedding receptions. To give you an idea, 1-2 year waiting list for wedding receptions and cheapest plan menu was $300 a head. Plus being a hotel, the bride and groom stay in a room on the night. Propositioned so many times. Once every staff member got handed a photo and it was do not allow to enter and to call security. It was the groom's mother. Apparently she hated the bride so much they put an avo out on her. It took 3 police officers to get her into the police car. She bit one of the security staff. A bride so drunk they refused to allow her to sign the marriage certificate. The ceremony and reception went ahead, but the marriage officially happened next day when sober. The best and most memorable, the bride's father was paying for the reception. Groom asked for a few projectors to be set up so that he could play a movie and photo montage of their relationship. All's going well for 5 minutes until it hits a scene of the bride being pounded by 2 guys, neither of which was the groom. One was the best man. Still to this day don't know who the other guy was. During the video the groom had left via a cab. One other time the newlyweds had a cab called to the airport. We rang the room 30 minutes before the cab call as a courtesy. No answer. Manager goes and knocks and no reply. So he used the house key and there's the couple sleeping. Her in the wedding dress and him half in the suit, bother covered in vomit. So many have tried. We are honeymoon couple, please give us freebies. A Christian couple I know had never had fricked before their wedding night. The guy wanted to break the ice, so he got naked while his bride was in the suite bathroom on their honeymoon. He spread eagle and aimed his butt towards the bathroom door. His bride comes out and he rips a fart, but crap came out. He crapped the bed and she locked herself in the bathroom for 7 hours crying. They're fine now, but she wanted a divorce that night. I want to believe this. I worked as a bartender at a pretty nice hotel. There was a big convention center attached to it with a lot of meeting rooms and a huge ballroom. I wasn't always aware what was going on at the convention center unless the hotel was full for a convention. It had been a fairly quiet night and I didn't have anyone else sitting at the bar when a guy takes a seat and orders a beer. I got it for him and he looked like he was kind of upset, like something was really weighing on him, but I didn't want to pry. Some people don't always want to talk. This guy did. He said, "Aren't bartenders supposed to listen to your problems?" I say, "Sure man. What do you want to talk about?" He begins to tell me that he had gotten married that day. They had had their reception next door and were staying the night in the hotel. I congratulate him, but I'm a bit confused as to why he's sitting here by himself on his wedding night. He tells me that he's in his 30s and his bride is 26. They had been together at least 1.5 years, and she's a virgin, and he's not. I'm still confused as to why he's not consummating his new marriage, and he then tells me she was so nervous about their big night that she drank too much champagne and was in the room, passed out after having gotten sick. I had to take a second to keep my composure and not chuckle at this poor guy's misfortune because he was obviously really upset about it. He explained that they're taking a flight out tomorrow and then getting on a cruise for their honeymoon. I did my best to try and reassure and be optimistic for him. I said something about nerves and I was sure that everything would work out for him on the cruise. He seemed a little better than he was when he first sat down, but he still looked frustrated, and who could blame him? He ordered another beer and went back to his room. I worked for a timeshare company as a supervisor over the phone, so I got all the escalated calls for those upset owners for whatever reason. And there was this couple that were spending their honeymoon in Aruba. They had it all planned out. They were going to take a nice walk along the beach under the moonlight and go back and just get freaky. Well, the time of year that they got married in happened to be a very humid time, so there's a lot of bugs out. I get the call from the bride. She's irate. Goes straight to the supervisor. She called in and blamed the timeshare company for the fact that she wasn't able to get naked in front of her new husband and frick him so that they could convenience their first child together. All because she happened to get some mosquito bites and she was embarrassed to get naked in front of him because of those bites. And since the beach was on the resort's property, it was the hotel's fault that she couldn't get naked and get pregnant. To not convenience the child. For shame. Bartended at this upscale lodge in Texas. Catered mostly to oil money and the FW area rich people. This lady came in, probably 35ish and decent looking with a nice body. Not quite a newlywed, but was married 6 months earlier. Then he cheated and she left him, about 4 martinis and she started spilling her guts. She said they had only had frick maybe 10 times as a married couple and she misses the feel of a man etc. Really putting it on thick that she needed some. So I playfully bartender flirted with her, gave her a free drink, paid good attention etc. It got to be about midnight, bar closed at 12, and she asked if I could have a drink in her room with her when I got out. I said I couldn't do that. Place had very strict rules and I was making decent money. After a few minutes I decided that the story might be worth it and I told her that if she ordered room service I could deliver it in a few minutes. There was an end of night walk that had to be done that takes about 20-30 minutes, which I figured I could just not do and I could help out this divorcee. She drunkenly nodded and walked away. After about 15 minutes we got the order for strawberries to her room. I prepped them and got ready to go. Told manager I was going to do the night walk as well. Probably 15 minutes had gone by and I got to her door. It was slightly open. I knocked and walked in. There she was on the bed with another guy. Really fat hotel guest she must have picked up. Going down on her and she was no joke slapping his head yelling at him tongue frick me harder while he was jerking himself off. Neither one noticed me at all. Set down the strawberries and walked out. It wasn't even remotely close to a honeymoon hotspot, and that was the sad part. I was 17 and working at a particularly crappy open air motel on the night shift next to the nicest hotel in town, which wasn't saying much. A young couple came in practically in tears because the honeymoon suite they'd booked at the nicer hotel had rented out their room, and there wasn't anywhere else to stay, so they came to our motel. Literally the only one in town that had a single room to rent. I felt terribly sorry for them and gave them the biggest discount I could, and let them into that last crappy little room. While they were getting their luggage, I remembered the suite right above the office that was usually rented out as an apartment. It wasn't any great shakes of an apartment, but it was the best we had. I didn't say anything to the couple right away, but went upstairs and did the best I could to scrub off the dust and spiders and rub a bleach rag over the linoleum. It took me about an hour and I was pretty proud of myself for getting the room ready as quick as I had, given the decrepit condition it was generally left in. I threw the bleach rags and dirty linens in the laundry room, and went to go bring the couple to their fancy-ish new suite. I knocked, but no one came to the door. The new husband eventually asked what I needed and I told them about their room. I was sadly puzzled that they didn't want to seem to leave even just to check it out, and that they didn't even come to the door or turn on the lights, and that the new bride kept giggling. I made my way sadly back to the front office and concluded that they must have been really tired after such a long day. They sounded a lot happier than they did when they first came in though, so I figured my efforts weren't a total waste. They were definitely naked. I'm not a honeymoon hotspot worker, but I do have a good story at a resort with honeymooners. When I was 19 I went to Hilton Head, South Carolina with my girlfriend at the time, and her mother and brother. We were staying in a timeshare that her mom and uncles shared and it was a pretty nice place. One night my ex and I decided to go out to the hot tub for some alone time. However, There was already a couple there. We still wanted to go into the hot tub, so we went anyway. She was a real personable person, so she started a conversation with the couple right away, and that's when we found out they were on their honeymoon. We all kept talking, and after a bit they offered us some of the champagne they had, which we eagerly accepted. After the bottle was finished, we were all trying to decide what to do. My ex and I had some weed we planned on smoking and decided to ask the couple if they wanted any. Since they were kind enough to share their champagne, they accepted right away and invited us over to where they were staying. If you want a fake foursome story, like most have been anticipating, stop here and skip to the next edit. If you want the real story, continue reading. We smoked and drank wine with them until we were all pretty gone. That's when the couple started getting really emotional and serious. They told us that we were a cute couple and that we were young, so we shouldn't get ourselves tied down so early. By what they were saying, it almost seemed like they were having some reservations about the marriage, which made it really awkward for us. My ex and I exchanged looks trying to look for a way out, since the night was taking a turn we did not want. When she got a call from her brother asking where we were, we used that call as our way out, so we said goodbye and congratulated them again before we left. That night and that couple has stuck with me over the years, and I honestly hope everything ended up well with them, because they were really cool and nice. We got back, and as we packed a bowl, they offered us some wine. We drank and smoked until eventually the idea of a foursome was brought up. We were all pretty gone at this point, and this was their first night together as a married couple, so it seemed like a great idea. We decided to make a game of it though and played a strip version of Never Have I Ever, using all of our fingers instead of just 3 so we would ensure we'd be naked. After about 20 minutes we were all pretty much naked and things got heated. My ex started making out with her, but before anything happened we decided that we should smoke another bowl. That's when I decided to be a jerk and derail this whole story by saying thank you for choosing this adventure. Maybe they had both escaped bad relationships and were grateful they had found each other a little later in life. This just happened a few days ago. I work at an upscale hotel chain on the coast in Florida. We get a lot of international guests. This couple wasn't on their honeymoon, but they were clearly married and on a special trip. They were both French and in their late 60s. I was working at the pool and the husband walks up to me looking for a towel. As he is walking up, I see his wife pull out a bottle of wine and take a serious pull right out of the bottle. We have a no glass policy on the pool deck, and not wanting to make a scene, I grab a couple plastic cups and ask the husband if he could put their wine in the cups. He looks really outraged offended when I asked, and said my wife doesn't drink alcohol. Well, I was pretty confused at this point, but I just said whatever it is, could they put it in the cups? He takes the cups and walks back over to their chairs, and after some heated conversation she storms out, giving me a witheringly dirty look as she leaves. I walk over to the guy apologizing. I didn't mean to upset you guys, just doing my job, etc. Turns out she was an alcoholic and had been pretending to be sober. The guy ended up crying as he sorta explained what the big deal was. It was pretty awkward. I think it was probably for the best that it came out into the open though. TLDR. Couple comes to my hotel from Europe. I accidentally revealed to the husband that the wife isn't sober. I wouldn't take the dirty look personally. When someone is that deep into their addiction, they can find fault with anyone else rather than look into their own behavior. I worked at a goddamn Dairy Queen. Hotspot? I think not. Anyway, this couple comes up to the counter, gushing and talking about how they just got married X days ago. They were clearly looking for someone to comp their first shared blizzard. What they did not realize was that I knew the girl involved, from a church-related thing, no less. The relationship was just distant enough so that she didn't recognize me without context. Clearly, they were dating or friends or something who decided to try to get free ice cream. If she'd truly been engaged, I would have known. Anyway, I said in my sweetest voice, sure, name of girl, and congrats. Her face was priceless both at the time and later when I saw her among church people. Totally worth the money I had to eat for the blizzard. I worked at a camera photo store near a tourist location when I was a student. Back when you took your film to get developed in an hour. My job was operating the big photo developing machine. A generally crappy, boring job. Most of the time it was fully automated. Get the film picker, load the film, press some buttons, wait, Then the stack of photos comes out and I put it in an envelope for pickup. I had a supervisor lab technician who monitored and calibrated the machine, so I was basically just a button pressing minion. 90% of the time I don't even glance at the stack that comes out, unless I need to check for issues with the print, so I'd have to get the lab tech. I always see the top print. However, when I load it into the envelope, and often there'd be nudes, I'd occasionally have to flip through the photos anyway to prevent the photos sticking together, so you'd see things here and there. Generally these are not attractive people, so I don't ever flip through them. I try not to take more than a glance if I could avoid it. Think unattractive, flabby 40 somethings performing oral in terrible hotel lighting, and you know what I'm talking about. One time, I saw a bald guy giving another man fellatio as the top photo. I didn't think much of it, except the guy performing had a very noticeable facial mark. I think it was a birthmark or something. Again, I don't think much of it, just drop it into the envelope, put on the code sticker, toss it into the box. I had forgotten about it by the time I left for lunch, a local sandwich joint, but then halfway through my lunch I see this guy walks in, with the exact same birthmark on his face, and he was a priest. I tried not to stare, and he just buys a couple of cans of soda and walks out. The rest of my lunch all I could think of was that priest and the man sausage in his mouth. I have nothing against gays. It was just such a weird, intimate thing. When I went back, I asked the girl working at the cash register to see if a priest had picked up the photos, and she said he did. Of course I didn't tell anyone about it, mostly because it's none of my goddamn business what a guy does on his vacation. I just hope he's happy. One time we had a couple who had just gotten married spend their wedding night with us before they were to fly out the next day for their honeymoon. We made sure the room was perfect, even comping them some champagne. Then, at about 1 AM, we got several complaints from the surrounding rooms that they were screaming at each other. Not ecstatic, yay, baby kind of screams. More like yay, go ahead and cry, you frickin' bee kind of screams. So, our protocol in such a situation is to call the cops for a domestic dispute. Turns out the guy had punched through our wall. He was arrested, and she spent her wedding night alone. Great foundation for a marriage. Not really a honeymoon story, but I thought I'd share. I used to work at a big hotel, and one week we had a gay wedding. The ceremony reception went well with about 60 people in attendance. For the night the couple had booked one of the bigger rooms, expecting about 200 people. So we set up all the tables, buffet, and the DJ sets up, all prepared for what we expected to be a massive night. Cut to 11 PM. I walk into this big room to find about 25 people and one of the grooms crying onto the other. Unfortunately they had booked their wedding the same weekend as our city's gay pride festival. No one has shown up to the night party and half the people from the day had left to attend the festival. We felt so bad for them. He was just crying all night. Poor guys. We rent out holiday homes on a weekly basis. That Saturday, the family that rented one of them didn't show up, though they paid the €3,000 up front. No phone call or message to warn us of any delay. We tried calling them. No reply. In the end we concluded they must have had an accident on the way. 2 days and various attempts at contact from us later, I get a very embarrassed phone call. It turns out they were at their own wedding feast when they were supposed to arrive, in their home country 1,000 kilometers from there. They passed out at 5 AM. Slept through the next day and only found our messages the following evening. The whole party just assumed someone else had told us they planned to arrive 2 days too late. I'm glad they turned out to be just wed rather than dead, but who the frick goes on honeymoon together with their parents and in-laws? My brother used to work at a big restaurant resort that would often do weddings. One night they were hosting a large dinner party for all the guests after the wedding earlier that day. Of course at that point everyone was pretty wasted, so the groom ended up getting into a fight with one of the bride's distant uncles. I kid you not. The uncle ended up biting off the groom's finger and swallowing it so he couldn't reattach it. Everyone was freaking out and the groomsmen ended up beating up the uncle until he puked back out the severed finger. My first marriage was back in 1987. We were both 20. Barely enough money for food and rent. You know the drill. We went on a honeymoon to a resort location nearby in a hotel. They gave us a room right next to the door leading to the indoor pool area. We checked into our room and I did the whole carry over the threshold thing and we got busy pretty fast. Clothes piled on floor and us naked going at it, athletic sweaty freaking. Then I heard a noise and looked toward the door and I see a couple of families staring into our open door that I forgot to even close. Freaking paparazzi, literally. I work at a hotel. Since I have been working in this business, I have decided that I am never going to step foot in a hotel jacuzzi tub. I used to work at a large hotel where weddings receptions would be held on a regular basis. But one night, after a wedding, the newlywed couple is in their suite and complaints start coming in about a fight in their room. Turns out, they got into it with each other and the new wife beat up her new husband. The cops ended up taking her to jail. I guess the new husband was fapping that night. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.